I think the Ukrainian doctors are doing an incredible job with the super little salary they get and the super little equipment they have. They are still, fighting for the Ukrainian people. So that's an inspiration also, really, it is. Yeah, it is.
Welcome to Storytelling Ukraine. Fun stories of peace, sad stories of war, true stories of life in Ukraine. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button if you like our podcast and if you think it makes a difference. And I'm very happy to welcome Toke Barfod at our podcast today. Hello, Toke.
Hello, Sergey.
Yes.
And thank you very much for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to share my experience and stories.
Excellent. So, speaking about the stories, how did it happen that you actually have Ukraine stories to share?
So, I'm a medical doctor working in Denmark, and so 6 years ago, WHO and CDC wanted to assist Ukraine with their HIV epidemic problem. And they talked to the doctors of Ukraine of how they could help, and they came up with this idea of a mentoring project, so that doctors from Ukraine could come to Denmark for 1 week and see how we're working, and then HIV specialists from Denmark could come to Ukraine and mentor them on how they treat their patients.
Right. And this is how you came to Ukraine?
This is how I came to Ukraine, yes.
What did you know about our country before coming here? Like, did you have any expectations?
This is so embarrassing, I really didn't know much. I mean, this Eastern European country, very large. That's
already a lot. I mean, you could locate it on the map and that it's big.
Thank you, you're very kind.
That's a lot.
Thank you very much.
And did you have any expectations of what to see before coming here?
I hardly really remember actually if I had some expectations. I hadn't seen so much of Eastern Europe before. I mean, I've seen Poland,
right,
and the former Yugoslavia, but so I probably felt it would be a little bit like Poland, but probably also a little bit poorer, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So you came to Ukraine. You visited not one city, but a couple of cities, as far as I recall.
That is correct. I mean, we were only like 2 days in each city, so I actually traveled more or less the entire Ukraine.
Excellent. So you've seen much of the country.
I think so.
And what stories did you share when you came back to Denmark? And you were sitting like with your friends, I don't know, in a pub over a beer, and they were like asking, "So what's Ukraine like? Well, how was your trip?"
Yeah.
What stories did you share?
Well, of course, for me the professional part was huge. So I would share about HIV, the epidemic. 250,000 is a lot of people, even for a large country. So it's really an immense HIV epidemic for non-African countries, and also that so many has not been tested, and even if they're tested, that they are not receiving treatment.
Okay.
So that the fear, I felt like patients would be afraid of being tested. They were very afraid of HIV, and they also felt it was shameful.
Okay, so there was stigma attached to it.
A lot of stigma, but for me it was a very, very important message to just try to say that it really doesn't have to be this way. In Denmark, where I come from, it is it was like this 20 years ago, but now, you know, everybody knows that it's not shameful to have HIV. It can happen to everybody. And it's not dangerous at all. It's not dangerous at all to have HIV if you get tested and treated in time. So the dangerous thing is if you don't get tested. That is very dangerous, very, I would almost say stupid.
Right.
And if you have been tested, it's just so important to just take the treatment, because there was also, when there is all this fear and stigma, there were also some people in Ukraine, as far as I could understand, who got tested but just didn't want to think about it, so they did not go back to the hospital and receive the treatment, which is also, you know, incredibly bad.
Bad idea.
Yeah, so this is really an interesting case of how shame and fear can be super dangerous. And if you're proud and not afraid, it's not dangerous. You understand? Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Do you think it has something to do with the culture, with the cultural differences? Maybe, I don't know, the mistrust in the official healthcare, public healthcare, being afraid of stigma, low awareness of the problem and what HIV really is. Is it a cultural thing?
Yes, I'm sure it has to do with culture and lack of trust in the messages from the hospitals and from the authorities. However, it was also a little bit like this in Denmark 20 years ago, and we have a different culture, and it was a little bit like this in Africa. Sometimes it still is, but much more 10 years ago. So I think also it's knowledge that it's very easy to treat. It's just, you know, take the test, take the treatment. It's just 1 or 2 pills a day, and you'll be living super fine as everybody else. But for me, I'm not an anthropologist, so it's difficult for me to say exactly which cultural factors are at the root of this. That's difficult for me. And also, I don't want to blame the Ukrainian culture.
Okay, right. So going back to your first visits to Ukraine, how were you accepted? How were you treated as a guest lecturer in the Ukrainian hospitals you visited?
With a lot of kindness and a lot of respect. And I think, by the way, the WHO did a very nice job, you know, making everything easy for me, so I would be transported to the hotel, and everything was nicely arranged. And when we came to the hospitals, I think it was a good experience how the doctors would interact with me. You know, sometimes you feel that they would rather not expose their problems.
Right.
They would also so that's always a little bit of a difficulty when you come as a mentor to try to say, you can be open with me and I'm not punishing you, I'm here to help. And, and there were very few doctors who were also trying to complain as if I was somebody from the government who were able to give them resources.
Right. Yeah. So you visited a lot of Ukrainian cities.
Yes.
Are there any that stand out? Any memories, particular memories associated with visiting particular cities?
There was no time or very little time for socializing and being a tourist, but I think Kiev is nice, and the Alphavito hotel, who has been bombed, I think 1 year ago, was super nice. One of the nicest hotels I've ever been at, because it has like an old-fashioned, classy style, which I really enjoyed. And I like now I can remember like 3 cities right now. Odessa, very beautiful. And Lviv, of course, where we are now, also extremely European, in my opinion, compared to much of the other places. And actually, I liked Mariupol, and of course, it's extremely sad, what has happened to the city. But and even back then, it had some marks of shellings, even 5 years ago.
Yeah. Because the war started in 2014.
Yes,
that's
of
something
course.
that people, keep forgetting. Yeah.
Yes. But I kind of liked also this more European architecture, monumental of Mariupol, and then there were also some towns that were, I think, a little bit rough, or with a lot of industry. I'm not maybe Kherson, but also some
Kryvyi.
Yeah.
Kryvyi, yes.
It felt a little bit tough.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Kryvyi.
Exactly.
Yes, that's the one. Kryvyi.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, what are some of the stories, apart from your professional aspect of all these visits, that come to your mind?
Well, for example, taking a jog in Kryvyi, I was suddenly followed by a lot of dogs, so I didn't really feel comfortable about it.
Okay.
But I think I can mainly tell professional stories. In a way, it's a little bit embarrassing, but well, I made some friends with the colleagues, with the Ukrainian doctors, which was very pleasant. I must admit, it's mainly the professional things that I thought about. So this fear and stigma, but also things that were not perfect within how HIV was handled by the healthcare system.
Right.
Like you didn't trust. They had to do pre-test counseling.
Okay.
So if I was suggesting you to have an HIV test, I would first have to send you to some other guys in another office, and maybe you would never go there. After that, they would have to come back. You would have to come back, and then have one test, and then have another confirmatory, and then have a third or even a fourth confirmatory test. So it was a huge hassle, which is internationally not recommended. It's recommended to just say, is it okay if I take an HIV test on you, and then test, and that's it. And it makes a huge difference, because you lose a lot of people. I'm sorry, I'm just talking about the professional stuff, but that's the stories I have.
That's your stories, and that's the important thing. That's no problem at all, because that's the important thing about it. That's what you remember,
that is what I remember.
Right.
And then there was also the cultural autonomy of doctors. How, when we discuss things, we always try to. It's just in our DNA when doctors discuss where I come from. So where did you pick up this knowledge? Where's the guideline? Where's the evidence? Whereas I heard a lot of doctors say, it's my experience that this is a wonderful drug, or Professor so-and-so and so said this was a wonderful drug, and often the drugs which were then prescribed was, in the international opinion, old-fashioned and full of side effects, and so there was a cultural thing there. And what I also, of course, told my friends back in Denmark was that the salary was so low that they couldn't believe it, right? I mean, in most countries in the world, I think it's well paid to be a doctor, right?
In most, yes.
So when I heard these stories that you could hardly make a living, you would either have to have a good spouse or an extra job as a hair cutter or something, which is, of course, also is demotivating for the doctors. And also the doctors, frankly speaking, they didn't seem so busy. So where I come from, all doctors are well paid, but they're also extremely busy. So that was also some difference that I experienced.
Now, we keep talking about differences and comparisons, but that's how we learn things, right?
Right.
So you were in Ukraine 6 years ago, and now you came with a different project, with a different agenda, but you came to a country which is at war.
That is correct.
What are the obvious differences, if you have felt any, when it comes to visiting Ukraine during wartime?
Oh, that's a tough one because I have been working in many countries, but it's the first time I have worked in a country with war. So it really has made me sad, of course. So even when I'm home and you read it in the news, everybody reads it in the news, but I think it goes even more to my heart now that I have seen all these soldiers in the hospitals with big wounds in the stomach or no legs, and of course I've seen these in some towns now. I think maybe Khmelnytsky. They have pictures of the lost.
It's in every town in Ukraine.
It's a little bit difficult for me to talk about because that really made a terrible impression, what can I say? It's just incredibly sad.
Yeah. But when it comes just to coming here, like the logistics, staying in the hotel, living here for a couple of days or weeks, what does it feel like? Do you feel any threat while you're here?
Well, most of the time I feel quite comfortable. I am taken well care of by WHO, but I did have a very unpleasant experience when I was. They tried to draft me. I don't know if you want me to share this story.
Well, we don't have any forbidden topics, unless it's some military secrets which we don't share.
No. It's just. I mean, I'm not sure people in my country know that a thing like this happens, that people get drafted on the street, and are taken by more or less force. So I experienced this one day. I was walking, and again, I don't really remember if it was in. I think maybe it was in Ternopil.
Okay.
And just walking, and then suddenly this minivan with dark windows is driving fast and in front of me, and out jumps these huge soldiers, one in front of me, one in the back, and he starts to talk to me very fast and with a very threatening attitude, and I understood, but that they were trying to draft me, and of course, with my brain, I knew nothing's gonna happen.
Right.
But it still, emotionally, it made a deep impression. I mean, when my brain slowly started to work, of course, I could just pull out my passport, and he completely lost interest. He didn't say sorry or goodbye, or no, he just lost interest in the car, and off they drove.
Yeah.
And in the days after that, I mean, I was a little bit jumpy, when I saw a minivan or something.
I can imagine. Yes.
Yes, but I mean, apart from that, I think the life here, I haven't really felt a threat. Of course, there are these alarms sometimes.
Yes.
And not right now. We're sitting in the
basement, in a shelter.
Yeah, in the shelter. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just in case of air raid alert, so that we don't have to stop our recording. Right. The Western media cover the war in Ukraine, but that's pretty much the only thing they cover. And I'm concerned that the Western audience may have some misconception about Ukraine.
Right. So when I walk out on the street in Lviv, it's just like, I would say, paradise. It's like Copenhagen, musicians on the street, and life goes on.
Right.
So that's very impressive, I think.
But what is, let's say, one thing that the whole world gets wrong about Ukraine?
I wouldn't. I don't have an opinion on that. That the whole world is something wrong.
Okay.
I don't. I can't answer that.
I see. So,
what would you suggest? Do you think the world has something misunderstood about?
I think there is some misunderstanding of
like what?
Of the role of Ukraine in the place of Ukraine in the current geopolitics. Because if Ukraine falls, then the whole Western civilization falls.
You think so?
I am deeply confident.
All right. I wouldn't.
This is really that much at stake.
Okay.
That people just look at Ukraine as some obscure Eastern European country that used to be under the Russian sphere of influence, and maybe let Russia just take over Ukraine and let us forget about this conflict.
All right.
But I think that if Ukraine falls, then then comes Poland and the Baltic states and the rest of the Western world. So I believe that it's really important for the whole world to understand how much is at stake right now. But it's really difficult to persuade people, about.
Yeah, I really don't know.
Something like that.
I'm just a doctor.
Of course.
I can't comment on that.
Would you like to share some other stories about Ukraine, like something that a story without which this whole picture of Ukraine wouldn't be complete? Something that you would take away with you. Some lessons learned, maybe, just like we like to say during workshops like we had this past week.
It's just that I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to work here. I think it's amazing to be allowed to help, and especially also because the WHO is doing a nice job in helping me, facilitating it, and I can visit the hospitals and I mean we're probably not doing a huge difference, but it's just nice to do something. I mean, living in Denmark and knowing that these bad things are happening, for most people, they just don't really know, wish I could do something. So having the chance to do something is super nice. Now I'm here on another project working with how to use antibiotics in a sensible way. And so I think Ukraine also needs a lot of support for their hospitals.
Sure.
Of course, it's important that they receive military assistance, but they really could also use some more help with their hospitals. They so much lack drugs and antibiotics and equipment for the microbiology labs, for example.
Right.
So I think the Ukrainian doctors are doing an incredible job with the super little salary they get and the super little equipment they have. They are still, fighting for the Ukrainian people. So that's an inspiration also, really. It is. Yeah, it is.
That's just a very brilliant way to end this conversation with this statement and this evaluation. If you were to write a book about your experience of visiting Ukraine and working here, what would be the title?
That's a difficult one. I can't. I'm sorry. I wish I could come up with a great title fast.
Sorry. Yeah, I should have warned in advance about this question, but
no, I can't. So it's just, I would say.
We'll save it.
It could be Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini. That's a good one. That's a good one. Excellent.
Right, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for devoting your time and sharing your stories. And
Thank you. No, it's a pleasure, and
thank you.
I'm also very grateful for having this opportunity, and it was nice talking to you.
Nice talking. Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for staying with us till the end. Please make sure to subscribe, support us on Patreon, and buy me a coffee. And remember, let's make this a world of stories and not of headlines. And see you at the next podcast. Bye.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Toke.
Thank you.